10 Key Ideas from the Gem Hidden Genius. This book is full of anecdotes and real examples of people who have gone outside the box with their thinking and achieved extraordinary things. Let's dig in. Chapter 1 is about creativity. The example she uses is a chef who is known for innovation in his restaurant. It's a different restaurant every time you go. And then he loses his sense of taste. So instead of letting that ruin him, he breaks out of the box of thinking and makes basically a mind map of his dishes. So he starts with a central ingredient, let's say grilled chicken. And then he thinks about what things go with grilled chicken. Well, a lot of people like a couple of lemon drops on their grilled chicken, so maybe let's add that. That's a side part of this main ingredient. And then what do people drink with chicken? Well, people like beer. People like wine. White wine, probably, because it's chicken. So those could both go with it just fine. Those could pair. What side dishes, then, would go with this central ingredient? Steamed broccoli might work. Pineapple? Pineapple might not work. Pineapple might not go with the lemon grilled chicken, so maybe we won't include that ingredient. But people do like steamed broccoli. That's inoffensive, goes with a lot of things. And so by creating this mind map around this ingredient, he is able to innovate new dishes without being able to taste them. There's a transitive property to some foods. For example, almost everything goes with bacon, right? Yeah. So that's how he's able to keep his restaurant going, innovate new things, even without being able to taste. It's systems thinking, basically. Chapter 2 is about mental toughness. This is where the example in it is a runner, and let's say she's a few miles into her run, and then suddenly her knee starts hurting. So in order to keep going and achieve her goal, something she tries is thinking of her pain as a friend and talking to her knee, saying, okay, knee, I know you're in pain. We've got a lot to do still. We've got a lot of miles to run. We got to get this goal done. So what do you need so we can get this goal done? She talks to the knee and separates it from herself, which then gives her more ability to get through and get to her goal. And she also can occasionally think of it as a place, like you could go into the pain deck and just decide, okay, my pain, I'm in the pain deck, which means the pain is not me, it is this location. So that's how she increases her grit. That's how she is able to push through and achieve her amazing results of her running, distance running. It's a really interesting idea of being able to think outside the box and try something different to give you the grit you need to get through to that goal. Chapter 3 is about healthy relationships. This is basically trust. Consistency plus time equals trust. A quote from Charlie Munger in the book is, imagine a society where it's a group of very reliable people consistently doing what needs to be done. They don't need a lot of procedure. They don't need a lot of rules. They just have totally reliable people just executing on the actions that need to be taken for their goal to be achieved. That sounds like a great world to me. I would love it. Chapter 4 is all about storytelling, how one must introduce conflict into a story to have a story worth listening to, worth telling. So you have to use the words but, except, then, a transition word that also introduces conflict. She says, no one is inherently boring. You just have to ask the right questions. It's kind of like in The Karate Kid 2, Mr. Miyagi says to the girl, the answer is only important if you ask the right question. That is so key to everything, that you have to prompt correctly to get an interesting response that is worth putting in your story. Chapter 5 is about leading. So here in this one, great leaders hire great people and then let them do their jobs. They empower from the bottom up, the bottom of the pyramid. You hire the right person in the right seat You give them the resources and the space they need to execute on their job, and they will execute on their job and achieve extraordinary things for you. It's not micromanaging, it's systems thinking in a big level that affects other people, where you just have these reliable people who have the resources they need to get the job done. Chapter 6 is about taking risks, specifically calculated risks. So when you're training, think of it as preparing for the worst case scenario. If you're going on a road trip, think about, okay, what is the absolute worst thing that could happen on this trip where I'm still alive? And for me, it would be I get stuck by the side of the road for several hours. Well, what would I need in that situation? Preparing for that catastrophe can help. I would need some high-calorie snacks. I would need some water. I might need a blanket. I might want a flare, exaggerating to make a point. But think of it as catastrophe training. And then you'll be prepared, for whatever might come your way, hopefully. When you have a giant complex problem, you don't think about the whole complex problem together. You think about the next action you can take to come closer to achieving the goal. That's a really good idea. You don't want to get overwhelmed by thinking of the whole thing at once. You just think, okay, I need one thing I can do right now to be on track for this goal. Chapter 7 is about clarifying thinking. This is where she introduces the thinking matrix, if you will. So here's the thinking matrix. It is the difference between passive versus aggressive thinking and conventional versus independent thinking. And anyone could be anywhere on this spectrum. We can even be in different places with different subjects. So if you're a passive thinker, you kind of think, it's cool, you go with the flow. If you're an aggressive thinker, maybe you want to dismantle some stuff that you don't think is working. If you are a conventional thinker, you're usually quite a bit of a rule follower. You think these are the rules, they must be followed, this is it, this is how you do this. If you are an independent thinker, you might actively try to dismantle the rules, maybe just the rules that are inconvenient, but you might be a little bit more rebellious in that way. And so depending on where you are on this matrix, you can be as much as a passive, conventional-minded thinker, which is a total rule follower, like, an upholder in Gretchen Rubin's book. Or you might be aggressively independent and try to burn it all down. Usually people are somewhere on this continuum that are a little bit less on the extremes. But it's a really interesting framework to put your thoughts on and, see where you fall. Chapter 8 is all about building a community. It's about connecting like-minded people who have similar interests and goals. It's not about follower count. It's about creating serendipity. Sometimes serendipity happens. That's why it's serendipity. And sometimes it can be created by, say, showing up at your fans' houses, arranging parties. I think that the example she uses is Taylor Swift. When she was first getting started, she would send personalized gifts to some of her fans to create a serendipitous moment and get a loyal community who is all about the goal and all about loving each other and building great things together. Chapter 9 is about a content diet. What we read is what we become. So we need to be careful with what we consume digitally, media-wise. If you only read the books everyone else is reading, if you only consume the ideas everyone else is thinking, then those are the only ideas you're going to have in your head. So getting outside of conventional thinking, breaking free of that, Google something completely different, read a book that you would never pick up, and expand the ideas that are available in your brain to come up with new and great ones. The book Steal Like an Artist is great for that one. I highly recommend that one as well. Chapter 10 is about discovering your hidden genius. You contain multitudes. Reclaiming what society has labeled you as. Claim it as your own. Bet on yourself. When you bet on yourself, bet that you can do a thing, whether it's making a YouTube video or creating a giant musical community. When you bet on yourself, you internalize that you can do and be more than one thing in this world. So go out, and do and be more than one thing. This is a true gem full of amazing examples and actionable steps you can take to improve anything in your life. I highly recommend this book. Thank you so much for watching. If you got anything at all out of this video, please hit the like button and subscribe so you get all future videos. If you would like an overview of a few more books, click the link below of books to scale up your life, and I'll see you there. And as always, keep being amazing.